Hi, everyone. Welcome to Brand Boutique Elite Speaker Series. Make sure to check out our podcast and follow our podcast. We are on iTunes as well as the other platforms, whatever your preference is. I have a very special guest here today, Mia Hewett. Thank you for coming on today.
Yay. So fun to be here.
So when I met Mia, I was so impressed with her. We actually met at a program Landmark Worldwide has called Team Management and Leadership Program.
Yes.
And it was such an amazing experience to go through that program, as well as to meet Mia and some really great people. And there's a couple of people that, there's hundreds of people, and there's some people that really stand out and make a difference for you. And when I met her, she really made a difference for me. She helped me with some personal growth and development. And I also really just admired her. I looked at her and I was like, okay, your poise, the way you stand, like the stand you are for humanity, what you do for the world. And I'm like, I want to be like Mia. And so and so it was really, I'm so happy to have met you and to have spent time with you. And so
Likewise.
She is a best-selling author.
Yeah.
And she is the human awaken expert. And she really helps people strive to be the best they can be and accomplish any goals in their lives. So tell us a little bit about what you do and how you do that.
Oh, and thank you so much for that introduction. Like, that is like the sweetest thing. That means so much to me, more than anything else. So thank you so much for like how we met. And that just it just touches my heart. So thank you, Farhana. Who I am is I help purpose-driven, impact-driven entrepreneurs know that they are meant for more. They keep secretly struggling and they don't know why. They struggle with self-doubt and fear and anxiety. And they really want to become a force to be reckoned with, or they really want to be able to stay in their power and create wealth the faster, easier way. And so I help them do that. I'm like really great at building businesses. I grew up poor, and I knew I never wanted to be poor again. I just remember thinking as a teenager, like my dog died because our house was so infested with fleas. They literally sucked the blood out of him. And I remember deciding at 13, like, I don't know how I'm going to become wealthy, but I am not going to stay poor. And I remember like praying to God, like going, if you could just help me figure this out, if you could just help me figure this out, I will give it to the world. And I'm such a person of integrity, and my word means everything, and I'm doing exactly what I promised. So I built my first company. I built a multi-million-dollar brick and mortar business, and now I've built a $1 million online business. And it's amazing. I have both experiences of like what it is in brick and mortar and what it is online, and I think it's fascinating. Like, the whole thing is fascinating, because what I love, the fact that I built a brick and mortar first, is that I can really see where the holes are on a lot of people's online businesses, because they don't have what the foundational, like when you do a brick and mortar, it's like if you skip a foundational piece, you go under. Right? Like online, you can get away with certain things more because it's online. Where in brick and mortar, it's like everything is about relationship building. Everything is about relationship building. So I'm super excited to be here. I'm so excited to have fun with you today. Please ask me anyway, like, what can I help you guys with? Because I want to help the world be who they need to be so that they can really achieve everything they want.
So I love that you have the experience of brick and mortar as well as online, and tons of businesses that are brick and mortar or that see that there is a need to move into online space. I mean, just what's going on in the world, and really people do research online prior to buying most things, prior to working with most people. What are some of the gaps that you see that people are kind of skipping over online, and that there's a missing in their like real growth because of them?
Oh, totally. So a couple stand out really big for me. Like, first of all, is that relationship building. Like, ultimately, at the end of the day, business is all about relationships. And when you can like really get that, like not as a concept, but like as a way of being, meaning people buy emotionally and they justify it logically, right? So it's not like oftentimes what people will say to me, like when I'll back up a minute, like nobody ever comes to me with the right problem, right? Which makes sense because the reason it's a problem is because they don't have the solution or it wouldn't be a problem. So the fact that somebody, whatever the problem is that we're experiencing, I can guarantee you it's a symptom. And the real problem is something totally different. So where there's a gap is a lot of times where people will say, oh, as an example, they'll think that they have to be really, really nice, like super, super people pleasing. And that's how people are going to like buy from them. Or they'll go take the opposite approach and they'll think, I need to come off like really, really strong so that like, nobody's going to take advantage of me. And that's what's going to make people buy. And the fascinating thing is it doesn't work either way, right? And so in the relationship, it's really about your relationship with self first. If you don't value yourself, if you don't have integrity with your word, if you are constantly worried about what people think about you, if you're constantly more concerned about others' opinions or judgments, if you're constantly feeling like, I don't want to be an imposter, I don't want to get up, all of that stuff is actually coming from childhood. Isn't that fascinating? Like, I didn't really get, and all of this I've done. So when I'm saying this, please don't hear it as a judgment because I don't judge anyone. I've done all of these things. But what I can see, like what was huge for me is I didn't know back then what I know now. I didn't know that what was stopping me in my 30s was completely related to a trauma that happened to me when I was 4 or almost 5. I had no idea that was related. And why I say that is that's the biggest thing I see that stops entrepreneurs, like whether it's brick and mortar or online, is the trauma, because they don't see it's connected. But when we heal that trauma, we actually free our mind so we heal the emotions, which then we free the mind from running the negative self-talk, which then now we become unstoppable. The second thing, like I would say, like inside of the relationship when it goes to then online. So not understanding about relationship of self first, and now showing up inside of that integrity. That's what actually has people like be attracted to you, because you're so connected to yourself, like you so are in alignment with yourself that people are like, how is she doing that? So that would be like a big aha, like making that connection. Would you agree, Farhana? Like, do you see that? Okay.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, there's definitely areas in life that when I've dealt with what my emotions were, or, my past traumas. For example, becoming a speaker.
Yes.
I was so concerned of people liking me that I was scared to get up in front of people because I was like, well, are they going to like me? What are they going to think of me? Are they going to talk about me? And I kind of realized, where that came from. And that it was a story, and that actually, you know what, it really didn't matter. People are going to say whatever they're going to say, but like getting up on stage and giving people really amazing tips on how to grow their business and use social media marketing and to brand themselves. And I kind of realized that I was a contribution instead of, being scared of how I looked. And everyone, they're like, oh, I don't know how you do that. I would never get up on stage and do that. And it was like, yeah, at first I was nervous, but then I realized why I was nervous, and I could say, okay, well, I could live into that, or I could step out and be in my power and really be a contribution and provide to the world. And I think that's so interesting. When it comes to that space, I have clients that are like, yeah, we want to go on social media, but we're scared of, people might say this or they might say this. And I totally understand their concerns and where they come from. And then like that whole piece of like being integrity, being in your own, one of my slogans is, it's all about the narrative. So on social media, we're connecting people by what their core values are. So really
Yeah.
showcasing their core values and telling a visual story, and also,
Mm.
the written story, but
Yes.
making sure that they're really showing up as who they want to be in the world,
Yeah.
connecting with people on that one-on-one level, understanding what their community wants, needs, what emotions
Yeah.
they're having,
Yeah.
and then, like, really
Mm.
doing that networking piece. So people think like, oh, we're going to go on social media and we're going to get a ton of followers and we're going to make tons of sales. And it's like, yes, that's the goal. However, it's about connecting and having
Yeah.
these real relationships with people. It can't just be like, oh, you're there and everyone's going to be drawn to you, because everyone else is there too. You
Yeah.
have to show your value, show your authenticity and how you can really serve and help others. So like I totally agree with all of that. What
Yeah.
would you say is like another place? So, being
Yeah.
authentic and integrity and really standing in your own and coming forth. But what's like another area there's a
Sure. Absolutely. So that, yes, that relationship with self first and foremost, and then being authentic in the relationship with others. So definitely 100%. I would say the second thing is, because nobody ever comes with the right problem, then when it comes to sales, they will often think like, oh, people just don't have the money. Because that's what people will say. Oh, I don't have the money. But that is like, I want to say this with the most loving kindness. It's never about money. I know that people don't like to hear that, but the truth is, it's never about money. What that really is, when somebody's giving you the feedback that I don't have the money, if somebody were to say that, what they're really saying is, you didn't show me enough about like the value of what I would be getting to pay for that, or it wasn't clear to them exactly what it is that they would be getting as a result. It's really never about money. I'm not cheap, so I really say this from really hands-on and really knowing, because I do all my sales. People are always like, how are you a 7-figure business owner and you do your own sales? But my business is, so the way that I help people, I help those that are entrepreneurs that are secretly struggling. It's very personal. It's a very personalized, I'm helping heal trauma. I'm a business coach that heals trauma. So this is a very deep personal relationship, and I need to make sure they're really a fit for us. And we're a fit for them and they're a fit for us, because I don't let everybody in. You really have to be coachable. So I think the second thing, like inside of that, so when it comes to sales, is they always have the wrong problem. So they think that it's like people don't have the money or they don't have the time, but it's really that they haven't positioned their offer, or they haven't shown them the value, or they haven't done the sales in a way that really clearly identifies for the person exactly what it is that they want, what's really stopping them, and how your product or service is going to really deliver on that, and what the cost is if they don't do something. I think that there's just so much more to understanding the psychology of sales, and it's particularly the ego. So I want to say like this about the ego, because I'm a master at ego, because that's all what trauma is, right? It's like, it's all connected. When we have our original trauma, like how it actually works is this, right? So this is how it works. And I think it'll make so much more sense to people if they hear and see it, than just kind of like so that to really understand it. But I think inside of this is like how it's connected in the ego. And I'm going to tie it back to sales, because this is what's stopping everybody. And it stops them in their sales. It stops them in their social media. It stops them everywhere. And then we'll tie it back to sales. So let me make sure. So this is what happens, right? So if this is your lifeline, everybody was born, when they're born whole, perfect, and complete, right? So there's not one baby born with a self-esteem issue. So everybody's completely whole, perfect, and complete. And then what happens is, if you were to continue those experiences, they would just constantly look like this on your lifeline, right? They would just be constant circles of completeness. But what happens to us is we start out like this, and then usually I see the most around 3 and 4, it will create a trauma. Like, so we'll go into an experience, and we will feel blindsided. Like something will happen to us that we didn't even know could happen. Like it caused us to doubt ourselves or think like there must be something wrong with us for us to happen, because we experience an emotion, and the emotions that we feel of shame, like that there's something wrong with us, they're not good enough, that there's something missing, that creates an emotional trauma. So that's when we have a break in trust, this creates an open loop. This is the day we created our ego, that day right there. So then what happens from that day forward, every single other negative experience in our life will just become a deeper, bigger version of the same damn trauma. It'll happen over and over again until we actually heal it. And when we heal it, and I'm going to show you how this is tied to sales. And then until we heal it, once we heal this, where we heal the emotions, because it's in the emotions, we can then create the patterns we do want on purpose, right? And get everything we want. So what happens is most people are taught in society to look for it in the mind. And the mind has the negative self-talk. Let me just write that so we get it. Negative self-talk. But the problem is that the negative self-talk is actually just a symptom. It's not the source. And if we don't heal the emotional root cause of what caused us emotionally to now try to protect ourselves, where the ego comes out to protect ourselves so that we never get seen because we're so afraid of our own emotions. So how is it tied to sales? What happens in sales is just like in social media, a person thinks like, oh, they did something wrong. Like they're so afraid of doing something wrong. And then the person buying, here's the thing, it's running in the background of their mind. When they're going to make a buying decision, they don't want to look bad. Their number one concern is the fear of judgment or the fear of looking bad. So they're in concern of, is this the right decision? Is this the wrong decision? Am I going to look bad? Like, and especially to who, like, you know, like to their spouse or to their mother, right? Somebody. So what happens is in sales, we actually have to be aware of this. We have to know that the ego is going to be running. And so the way that we want to position it is to address those concerns and be able to show them the value such that they can make an offer, like they can make a decision on the offer that is completely in alignment with themselves. Does that make sense, Farhana? Like, do you see like this is like a huge hole, and then how it's tied to the ego, which we don't even, I mean, if you would have told me that, you know, I'm in my 50s now, but if you told me that in my, I'm like, what? Like, what? Wait. But it makes sense in some way. Does it make sense to you? Is that okay?
When I first started off my business, I was afraid to ask for the sale. And I would give lots of great content, but then I wouldn't ask, because I'm like, oh, well, I don't want to ask them something because I want them to like me. And if I ask them for the sale, then they're not going to like me. One of my mentors would be like, he's like, yeah, you're like the queen of information. All you do is like give lots of information, but then you don't ask for the sale. And yeah, and my other friends, you know, closed mouths don't get fed. And so I kind of was like, all right, that's true. And
I love that. I love that. That's a great example of how, like, when we're so afraid of yourselves, really look lovingly, because think about it. We go to school. We're raised in a household to like not ask for anything. Most of us were taught like to be obedient. And then we go to school where it's the entire school system is designed to build factory workers, not entrepreneurs. And we're taught that you have to raise your hand and ask for permission for anything. Why would you ever think you should have permission to ask for a sale? Right?
Yeah,
like,
it's so interesting.
It's so fascinating to me. And of course, that's why people struggle, because internally, because it's an emotional thing. Internally, they're like, but I'm not supposed to ask for anything. At least I was always taught that. We grew up poor. So my mom had 4 girls, no money. And so everything that ever came out of her mouth was, don't ask for anything. Don't ask for anything. Don't ask for anything. Like, no matter where we went, if we went to a friend's house, don't ask for anything. We went to the grocery store, don't ask for anything. Like, I was so ingrained to not ask. It was really something I had to emotionally heal so that I would feel free to ask where I have no emotional attachment whatsoever, whether someone says yes or no, but I'm completely free in the ask, which is so important.
I think that in most businesses, the hardest part
Yeah.
for people is the sales part. And because that's like an emotional part,
Totally.
like you don't want the no, because obviously somebody saying no doesn't feel good. And so, and also too, even following up. So sales is in the follow up.
Yeah.
And people are afraid to follow up.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, I don't want to be annoying. I don't want to do this.
Yeah.
And people will avoid it at all costs. And
Totally.
if you don't do that, like we can do so much marketing and everyone can know about you. And if you're not giving people an opportunity to buy or following up so that they can have that opportunity, then they're not going to.
Yeah.
So that's like, super interesting.
Yeah.
So definitely healing that past trauma because of the
Yes.
sales, being authentic and sharing yourself and building
Mhm.
relationships. Is there like another key tip that you see
Yeah.
happens a lot with your clients?
Totally. Like, because we're going to tying it all together. Can you see that even the follow-up is part of the relationship building? Like when you're truly standing for someone else and really like what it is that was going to serve them the most to get to their next level, then the follow-up is all about the relationship of how much you care. It's not about like being needy or creepy or anything out of alignment. Like there's no manipulation, right? So I would say the next thing that I would say is to really, really nail being an awakened entrepreneur, someone who's completely free of doubt, fear, any anxiety, any kind of trauma stopping them. I would say the next thing is so key is we've got to change the relationship that we have to failure. Like, I don't look at failure at all as something bad. I really changed the meaning of it. And here's what I mean by that. Like, I would say that one of the best things that people could do is here's how to succeed. Here's exactly the steps of how to succeed at failure. I want you to change the relationship with it such that you succeed in it. And here's how you do it. The first thing that you want to do is anytime something doesn't work, just really pulling back and like taking a third, like a third party perspective and go, okay, let me just acknowledge this, right? Just like that acceptance and acknowledgement of like, this didn't go how I thought it was going to go. So really acknowledging yourself like, wow, like I really thought it was going to be this way and it wasn't, so that you feel heard, even if it's to yourself, or even ask somebody to acknowledge you back so that you can feel validated that, wow, this just didn't go the way I thought. Okay. Once we can acknowledge it and get it out, we're starting to move these emotions so we don't stay stuck. This is where a lot of people hold their emotions or get trapped by their emotions or try to numb themselves to the emotions. And to be completely free, we want to be able to, like, I think a better way to hear this is we would never expect to eat all the food and drink the food and not pee and poop. But we don't have, because we would completely the toxins in our body, we would poison ourselves. But we don't understand that's the exact same thing we need to do with emotions. So if we don't process our emotions, they literally become dis-ease in our body. Right? The disallowance of ease. So as far as being a really awakened entrepreneur, living life without fear, we have to be able to process our emotions. So how to succeed at failure is the first step we want to do is we want to really acknowledge whatever we're feeling. And so not thinking that a feeling of negative is wrong. Like when we feel negative emotion, that it means something bad. I completely don't have that. I literally have it as a way to process and let something release something. So acknowledge however you're feeling is step number one. Step number two is now you want to get like, what's the gift in it? Every failure, I like to say that nobody wakes up in the morning and go, I cannot wait to make a mistake today. Like, oh my God, this is going to be so fun. Like not one person is making a mistake consciously. Not one. Nobody wakes up wanting to make mistakes. So every mistake is subconscious. It's unconscious to you. That's why it happened. So when you can acknowledge that, like, oh, what was the gift? Like, what can I make that was I wasn't aware of. What can I bring it to my consciousness that now that I really get? What's the gift in this? And then really sort that out. Like what was the learning? What was the gift? Because step 3 is now all about, okay, now you're going to take that learning and that implementing that gift, and now you're going to go implement on it. And then step 4 is you're going to self-praise. Like, I want to say, like, the biggest thing that I see that people don't do beyond changing their relationship with failure, beyond having relationship with themselves and creating relationships with their clients. So it really becomes a long-term ROI instead of these short time trying to make a quick buck, but really developing and creating real wealth. When we don't develop those relationships with ourselves and others and the world, and then we don't understand how in sales is, really an emotional game. It has nothing to do with logic. If people buy emotionally and justify it logically, and then we understand how to change the relationship with failure such that we know how to succeed at failure, then we become unstoppable. And when we know how to do those things and then self-praise, which is so important, everything in about building 6 and 7 figures becomes about a game. It becomes about fun. It becomes about evolving and expanding and magnifying our self-expression. And I just don't think it gets any better than that. You, Farhana?
Well, I think that self-praise is an area that I see as something I don't do. I came from a family where it was like, oh, you got an A, why didn't you get an A plus?
Oh, yes.
And so I do all of these things, and I'm making such great progress, and I know that I am doing that, but I don't even know how to self-praise. How do you do that?
I love that. That's actually a great question. That is a great question. So I literally will spend, let's say something happened that didn't go well, just like that, right? There was a mistake. Then I'm going to get the gift and the learning, and I'm going to implement it. And now how I would self-praise is I would literally go, I did it. I did it. I just did it. I did this. I totally got what the learning was. And now I'm totally on, what this is going to be. And now I would go right into imagining exactly the result I want, because I really teach living in vivid visions and not goals. Goals are concepts that are out there, but I really live in vivid visions. And so I would go right into my vivid vision, and I would be seeing myself totally celebrating, getting my result. If that was in sales and an X amount, or landing whatever it is that you want to land. Right now we're in our, we have a book, we launch our, through a book funnel and so forth. And so now we're going on to a podcast. And so I can see the completion of all of that and have everything done, and all of my clients, so super excited for all the value that they're getting. I just go into the whole vivid vision and praise. I did this. I got this. I got this. It just feels so exhilarating. When we can magnify and expand that feeling. Wow. Well, then here we go again. There's a huge reason. This is not just to feel good, and it does feel awesome to feel this way, but also based on the universal law of cause and effect. Everything is actually coming to us based on the energy of who we're being. So now we're taking that and we're literally creating a self-image of ourselves, of someone who expands through growth, expands through any kind of challenge, can overcome it, and is totally capable. Well, there we go again. Now when you see yourself as totally capable, then things don't they don't bother you. Things are easily, the solution is up. And now we're creating more attraction based on that. So does it make sense? Does that help you inside of how you self-praise? You actually go into it and become that, where it's not a false, oh, you did good. It's you're yeah.
Yeah. No, I love that. Taking your mistakes. Anytime something doesn't work,
yeah,
kind of like in marketing, you have to A/B test. You test something, it doesn't work. It doesn't mean that you did a terrible job. It's just you're testing out what's going to work, and then you put in place what you needed to do so that it does work. And so like that is great. And then also, in the whole self-praise thing, I think that I did that when I ran the Berlin Marathon.
Yes.
So my cousin, every single mile we went, she clapped. She's like, "We're doing so great." And then so when you hit mile 20 to 26, that's when it actually gets hard.
Yes.
And I found
witching hour.
And I found the pacer.
Yeah.
And I stayed with him, and I was feeling good. And the whole time in my head, I'm like, okay, you're doing great. You're pacing. You feel great. Your body feels great. And I finished that marathon because it is a head game. Like marathons are a head game. And I finished that like being like, wow, I feel great. My body feels great. And I did this. And so like the power of that is so important. And during, COVID and like the lockdown and things like that, I really took time to like focus on grounding myself and, creating and coming from a place of really focusing on what I was manifesting and like the energy that I was creating. Like all of 2020, I've been in this space of really being the energy that I want in the world. Like there's all of this stuff that's happening and all of these things, and people are feeling up and down and all of these things. And it's like what I felt like I could be is just who I wanted the world to like show up as. Like, and obviously there's I don't feel good this day or this, but like really just going in and being like, okay, thank you for sharing that you don't feel great, but let's be happy. Let's be joyful. Let's go out there and like conquer the world. And that feeling of having that ability to like recognize the stuff that doesn't feel great, and then literally just tell your mind, we're going to shift into what feels great because we need to be on path and purpose. And it feels better if we show up as something great in the world, because then greatness comes to us.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Like it's not by chance. It really isn't by chance. It's inside of the cause. When you like whatever you're being as a cause will literally create an effect and a ripple that will come back to that cause. So you are the cause, which means you have all the power. And like the way I like to say it is you have all the power, none of the control. So what that means is you've got to be highly committed, but completely detached on the way it's going to look or with who. Not let go of your end goal, not let go. Like I hold the outcome, but I let go of like with who that's going to happen or this exact specifics of how. I really give up control, but I'm totally in my power and I 100% expect it. So it's like a very funny thing because people always say to me like, oh my gosh, how do you get so committed but detached? It's like, that is the key. The key is like, you've got to be so committed and so inside of, deciding to operate from that cause, but completely detached to the way it's all going to happen. And when every time we do that, when you've done that, where you can just totally let go, but still stay in the expectation, the result will more than astound you the way it happens. Like way better than my rational mind would ever been able to figure that out. Right?
One of my clients, Christine McKay, she says, hold your goals in concrete and your plans in sand. So like
totally.
That's what you're saying.
Totally.
And it's when you have that ability, like stuff happens, life happens, things happen, like you can stick to your goals, but sometimes you're going to have to take another path that you didn't plan on. And when you're like, if you get really upset about it, it takes you longer to go on to that new path. But if you're like, okay, well, this is what happened. And all of my clients throughout the whole process of COVID, the ones that were like, okay, what are we going to do now? We have to just, work around this. We can't control it, but let's make the best of it and let's create. And those are the ones that are succeeding and like, showing up now, like strong.
Always. People always say that to me. They'll come to me and they'll say, Mia, what's the one strategy that that's going to make me successful? And I said, you're asking the wrong question. You should be asking me, how do I become a successful strategist. It's not the one. It's how are you going to be that as an online strategist? Because it's not one strategy that I know how to do. It's that I'm so malleable and so so flexible in how that can be done, that I can just move with whatever's happening in the environment, and it always pans out for me. It always works out for me. Like it's just about being. It's kind of like I like to put it towards sports, because I think when we see entrepreneurship like sports, I think it's easier for our minds to get around. Like, for instance, because we're in Boston, I'm going to talk about Tom Brady, right? Because in Tom Brady, can you imagine if we relate to Tom Brady as entrepreneurs, and Tom Brady doesn't walk out on the field and go, well, no, defense over there, you can only defend it a certain way because I need you guys to play this exactly the way I need it, because I need to control this so that you don't throw me any curveballs on the way that this play is going to go down. Like, if that actually happened, it would take not only all the fun out of watching the game, but it would be boring, right? So when we can like literally enjoy the play or the game of entrepreneurship, rather than like in survival, trying to like hold on to dear life, when we can get to the place where we can let go and start to enjoy it, the game becomes really fun. It really becomes fun. And I've been an entrepreneur 32 years. So I've been through every market, every single market. I knew that this downturn was coming. I'm not psychic. I did not know it was going to be a flu from a bat. Like, I had no idea about that, but every 10 years, there's a market correction, every 10 years. And so we were at 12 years and we were in a bull market. Everybody knew there was a correction coming. I didn't know it was going to be COVID, but we already knew that was coming. So it's kind of like when you understand that that's the way the game is played, you don't react, you just respond. And you just get in the game and you play it a different way, and you don't make it mean anything. And then life always is consistently fun. So I think that's really the biggest thing. What do you think, Farhana?
Yeah, for sure. Enjoy the moment, have fun with it, have fun with the turns.
Yeah.
That's definitely, when you're an entrepreneur, somebody said, oh, to me at one point, like, oh, you do it because of X, Y, and Z, because it's easy, or because of this. And I was like, no. Being an entrepreneur is not something that you do because of all of those other reasons. It's something that you do because you really love doing it, and you're willing to deal with all the trials and tribulations, and you're willing to get out there and to continuously like move through all of it and pick up the pieces and all of that stuff. And you want to be of service to whatever like market that you are serving.
Yeah.
So I definitely like agree with that. You said something earlier about, working with specific people. And when I first started my business, I would work with anybody because it was like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
And then what I realized is that when you're more selective of who you work with, you get better results, and it's better for everyone.
Yep.
And I found, I help people with their branding and their social media, but the people that weren't willing to do the sales or make that follow-up process or to provide me with information that I needed, or didn't show up on time to our meetings or canceled all of the time, those people were the people that we didn't see great results for them because their part was missing. So when you're working with people, how do you vet people? And because I feel like there's some people on here that are like, oh yeah, we would work with anybody and we can help everybody. But I think that when you are very specific and you serve a very specific demographic, or you even vet who, like, I only work with people that are really committed and really ready to do the work.
Totally.
Otherwise it just doesn't work. So how do you do that with your clients?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. Well, the only way I actually get on a call with anyone is if they've read my book. So in my application to even get on a call, if they haven't read my book, it literally says, please go read the book and come back when you're ready to dive deeper. And I don't mean that as like off-putting. It's just that I really want somebody who understands the value of what I'm doing, before they even get on a call with me, because it's going to help set up what I'm going to offer them, because I'm going to give them tremendous value on that call. That free clarity call is really valuable. And I want to make sure the value is worth the time of me giving it to them, because it's free. They're going to get so clear on their exact trauma, on what they really, really want of success, what's really stopping them, the exact trauma that they actually have, not what they think it is, which everybody misdiagnoses. If I told you how many people have come to me who've done years of therapy and never had the right trauma, and the right trauma is most important, because the way this works is we have to hit this domino. When we hit this domino, they all start to fall. So it really does make a difference if they don't have the right trauma, so that they can see how it's all being created. Because when you can see why you're holding yourself back, and then you can heal it, and you're the one who did it, you free yourself. So to answer your question, like how I really sort that out is I have them read my book first. The second thing, though, is when they come on the call, I'm explaining to them, because the coach relationship, like, they have to trust, or they should, whoever they work with, they need to trust that person, right? Like, this is going back to the relationship. Business is all about relationships 101. And if you don't have trust with the person, the ego is a very funny thing. You can convince yourself of anything, even if it's not true, right? So in order to have that ego in check and really be able to get the results you want, you're going to have to trust someone. Well, here's the biggest problem we all have as a human beings. And I, when I didn't understand this, and now I'm an expert at it, is like, the day that this trauma happened, we decided we couldn't trust anyone. So what's operating against us is we've told ourselves never to trust anyone. So now I'm asking these person, you have to trust me in order for me to just guide you. I'm not telling you to believe what I'm going to say, but you have to trust me enough to test it for yourself. I'm going to show you, but you're going to have to test it, right? Because I'm going to tell you exactly how it is. So I guide them. So what I do is, inside of that, in that call, I can see how coachable they are. Like, when I'm helping them see the clarity of it is exactly what it is that they want and where this happened. And I'll give you an exact example. And this doesn't happen to me often, because most of the time when somebody reads my book, they're really open to me. They know that I'm really truthful and I can show them. So I don't get the people who are skeptical usually. But there was this one woman that got referred to me. And she, it says that she read the book? And she said, well, I started it, but she didn't really go into it. And I was like, okay. But I got on the call because she was referred. And long story short, when I went to this one place and I said, okay, here's what we need to do. Before I took her through, I said, what we need to do is we need to go from, you have awareness right now. And what we need to do is get you from awareness to get a result. We have to take you from awareness, because awareness is not enough to get a result. You can't get a result from awareness, right? We have to move you over here to this world of where now you have to take that awareness, be able to sort and the misunderstanding and misconception that you have in the way, such that you clear the misconception, and then you're able to apply it consistently to get that result. So I said to her, so say this back to me. Awareness is not enough to get a result. And she goes, oh, no, I can't do that. If you can't say awareness back to, if you can't say, because I'm wanting to make sure she's digesting what I'm telling her, right? Just say it out loud. Say it back to me. Awareness is not enough to get a result. And she was like, oh, no, I can't do that. I was like, then I'm so sorry. I have nothing for you. Because this is like the control, right? If you're not willing to just say that, because I'm guiding you to say that, there's nothing I can do for you. Success is an inside job before it becomes an outside reality. I can only show you how to be successful. You've got to do the work. So to your point, that's how I can sort really quickly who's not going to be coachable and who is. And I just wish them the best, because there's no judgment. I don't have any judgment if they're not coachable. I just don't take money for somebody who's not coachable. Like, I don't have anything for them. And my reputation and my integrity is way more important than any dollar I ever get. So that's how I hold my standards.
So you have a special free gift for
yes.
listeners.
Yes.
What is that and how do they get it?
Okay, good, good. Yes, you can only get it through this Facebook here, that, Farhana's link, because it's not available for free anywhere else, but you can get my book for free. You just go to Mia Meant for More book.com. So it's Mia Meant for More book.com. And you're going to plug in this is the password you have to use. And it's all one word. It's called free book. So capital FREEBOOK, all one word, but only capital F. And so if you go there, enter that password, you'll be able to go right into my free book and get it downloaded for free, which is super cool.
Awesome.
Yay!
Fantastic. So I'm definitely going to read your book because I think you're fantastic. And
thank you
so much from it. So I have a little fun question.
Sure.
If you could be a superhero, what would your 2 superpowers be?
I love that. It's so funny, as when I saw myself as a superhero, I went back to Tomb Raider of Angelina Jolie, when she used to do, is it Tomb Raider? I'm like, I just see her as a badass. I was like, oh my gosh, that's who I want to be. Okay, so what powers would I have? I can see that the number one thing that stops everybody is this emotional trauma that happens. So the superpower I would have is I would be able to not even take me 8 weeks, which it takes me 8 weeks to heal someone. I would be able to just go right into them and just remove that emotional trauma and free their mind, so that the world, we can increase the amount of 1%ers in the world, like really create wealth to be so easy that anybody could accomplish it.
And 2?
Yeah. The second one's, I get 2 powers? Yeah. Okay. I was going to say, that's a great power. All right. So what would be the second power that I would want? Free the emotion. It's always in the emotion and in the mind. So the second one would be free their mind of any negative self-talk, so that people really got how powerful they were, and then were able to fully self-express and praise themselves, so they never ran any negative self-sabotaging loops in their mind anymore. Those would be my 2.
I love that.
Yeah.
I was on another podcast and they asked me, if you could change anything in the world, what would it be? It was a very pageant-y question, and there's so many things. And what I said was that I would have people be able to realize their self-limiting beliefs and let them go, so that they could stand into their power.
Absolutely.
So, very similar to what you said.
Absolutely. It is like the most, once you can free yourself from that, everything becomes possible. Everything. Yeah.
Well, I want to thank you so much for being on. You shared such amazing knowledge with our listeners, and I'm so grateful to have you in my life, and I cannot wait to read your book.
Oh, thank you so much, Farhana, and thanks so much for having me. This was so fun. It was so great to see you again. I love that. It's been so many years. I'm so excited to be here with you.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.